chair and take a seat. Take a seat. I got a lot on my mind. You know, it's amazing to think about how far we've come over the last 4 years. I mean, 4 years ago, we inherited a military that had been hollowed out by devastating budget cuts, an economy that was struggling to break out of the slowest recovery since the Great Depression. Terrorism was on the rise around the world, and we saw a steady assault on our most cherished values. But in 3 short years, we rebuilt our military. We revived our economy. We secured our border, supported law enforcement, and stood for life and liberty and the Constitution of the United States. And what the congressman knows is it all starts with our national defense. And after years that saw deep budget cuts when Joe Biden was vice president, and we're hearing tell in the media yesterday that Democrats in Washington are already planning deep budget cuts in our defense to pay for their massive domestic spending. Under President Donald Trump, we're finally giving our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard the resources and the support they deserve. And I got to tell you, not just as your vice president, but as the proud father of a United States Marine and the father-in-law of a United States Navy pilot, I couldn't be more proud to serve alongside a president who cares so deeply about the men and women of our armed forces and their families. So we've stood with those who serve, but we've also stood with all of you who wore the uniform of the United States. In fact, I expect there's a fair number of veterans who are with us today. If you served in our armed forces, if you're able, would you mind just standing up for a moment and letting us say thank you? Thank you for your service. Semper Fi. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. You know, when Joe Biden was vice president, Nevada and America saw years of scandal at the VA that shocked the conscience of our nation. You remember? I mean, we had veterans that were literally dying in waiting lines, waiting to get care at VA hospitals in this country. But when President Donald Trump was elected, all that changed. Our president signed the most sweeping reforms of the VA in 50 years. We fired 3,000 VA employees that weren't giving our veterans the care that they earned, and Veterans Choice is now available for every veteran in America. So we've stood for our national defense, stood to those who defended our nation in days gone by. But on this economy, in our first 3 years, after Joe Biden spent 8 years trying to tax and spend and bail our way back to a growing economy, President Donald Trump presided over the greatest economy in the history of this country, and he's doing it again. I don't know if you heard today's new GDP numbers. This morning we learned the American economy grew by more than 33% during the third quarter, shattering any previous record. The great American comeback is on. And with 4 more years of President Trump in the White House, we're going to bring back the American economy bigger and better than ever before. You know, as President Trump said today, third quarter GDP was, in his words, the biggest and best in our history. Not even close. And he said next year will be fantastic. And with President Donald Trump in the White House, count on it. I mean, our great American comeback is a testament to the character and the resilience and the strength of the American people. And it's a tribute to a president whose leadership created the greatest economy the world has ever seen. But now, in the midst of a global pandemic, Joe Biden actually wants to raise taxes by $4 trillion. And he wants to pass a $2 trillion version of the Green New Deal, which would crush our economy and our businesses under an avalanche of regulation and stifle American energy. But under President Trump, with the strong support of your congressman, we cut taxes across the board for working families. We rolled back more federal red tape than any administration in history. We fought for free and fair trade, unleashed American energy, and in 3 short years, businesses in this country created 7 million good-paying jobs, including 100,000 jobs right here in the Silver State. You know, I heard Joe Biden's running mate was in Reno a couple days ago. I had a debate with her myself in Salt Lake City a few weeks back. Thank you. But I heard she came here and she said that Joe Biden always says you only know how an economy is doing if you see how working people are doing. Okay. Well, Kamala and Joe, here in Nevada under President Donald Trump, average hourly earnings grew more in our first 3.5 years than in all 8 years when Joe Biden was vice president. And median household income in Nevada dropped when Joe Biden was vice president, but under President Donald Trump, median household income jumped 20% by the end of 2019. That's how working people in Nevada were doing under President Donald Trump. It's amazing. The contrast just keeps going. You know, when Joe Biden was vice president, America actually lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs. It's true. And remember the last president, he's been out on the campaign trail. Remember the last president said those manufacturing jobs were never coming back. He said, "What magic wand do you have?" Well, we didn't need a magic wand. We just needed President Donald Trump in the White House. 500,000 manufacturing jobs created in just 3 years, including 15,000 right here in the Silver State. It's incredible. And when it comes to trade, so important here in Nevada. It's amazing to think when we took office, half of our international trade deficit was with one country, Communist China. And Joe Biden been a cheerleader for Communist China all along the way. Never lifted a finger to level the playing field for American workers. But when President Trump came into office, we put China on notice. We said the era of economic surrender is over. We imposed tariffs on China's goods, and we're going to stand strong until they open their markets to what we make and what we grow. And closer to home, everybody remembers NAFTA, right? I mean, in the 25 years since NAFTA was signed, I can tell you out in the heartland where I grew up, we literally saw thousands of factories closed and jobs moved south of the border. It's amazing, 4 years ago, after President Trump and I were elected, but before we were inaugurated, I got word in the state of Indiana that a company that had been there for 75 years was closing their doors and going to Mexico. And all those years, you remember, Democrats always loved to complain about NAFTA, right? But Joe Biden and the Democrats never lifted a finger to fix what was wrong with it. But when the man who wrote The Art of the Deal got in the White House, Nevada and America got a way better deal. NAFTA is gone, and the USMCA is here to stay. It's a huge win for Nevada and a huge win for America. But men and women, you all deserve to know, Joe Biden's running mate, Kamala Harris, was one of only 10 senators to vote against the USMCA. It's no surprise she was rated as the most liberal member of the United States Senate a year ago. She voted against the USMCA because she said it didn't go far enough on climate change. Kamala Harris put her radical environmental agenda ahead of Nevada jobs and Nevada workers. And when it comes to trade, I promise you, President Trump will always put Nevada and America first. And on energy, the contrast continues. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris said over the last year repeatedly that they want to ban fracking and abolish fossil fuels. In fact, Joe Biden said in the presidential debate last week, and how well did President Trump do in that presidential debate? Am I right? Was that a great night? But you got to the end of the debate, right? And Joe Biden says, yeah, we need to transition from the oil industry. And the president put it well. He said, that's a big statement. And boy, was it. I mean, now they're saying different, aren't they, Mark? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are telling, they're not going to ban fracking. They're not going to. But Joe Biden in that debate, remember when he said, show the tape? Well, we've been showing the tape. It's pretty easy to find. Just get your phone out, take a look. I mean, look, they literally both spent the last year saying they're going to ban fracking, they'd abolish fossil fuels, where President Donald Trump has been a champion for American energy. And here in the home of the legendary Hoover Dam, I'm proud to report we're now a net exporter of energy for the first time in 70 years. America is energy independent. Men and women of Nevada, we got a choice to make. When it comes to this economy, it's a choice between a Trump boom and a Biden depression. You don't have to take my word for it. There's a nonpartisan study that just came out. It said Joe Biden's economic policies would cost America 5 million jobs. And the typical American family would see their income go down by $6,500 a year. So I got a question that I want you to ask. Anybody here in Reno, anybody, family, friends at worship, at work, just tell them you were sitting around out at the airport. Mike Pence showed up. And he said, and that guy ran here every bit as fast as he could. That was fourth gear for me. That's all I got. But I want you to ask them a question. If somebody's undecided, they're going into November 3rd in a sense, I'm still looking, still thinking, just tell them. Just say, I told you to tell them. Ask them. Who do you really think can bring this economy all the way back? I mean, just ask them a real question. Who do you really think can bring the American economy all the way back and then some in 2021? A career politician who spent 47 years in Washington, D.C., raising taxes, stifling the economy under an avalanche of regulations, waving a white flag of economic surrender on trade, or a proven job creator who's driving the fastest economic recovery in the history of America. You ask that question and you tell them we need 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House. So it's about our security. It's about prosperity of our economy. But we know the foundation of our prosperity is the rule of law. And I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands every day with the men and women who serve on the thin blue line of law enforcement at every level in America. President Trump and I know that the men and women that put on the uniform of law enforcement are some of the best people in this country, and they deserve the respect of every American every single day. Would you mind getting on your feet and just showing these law enforcement officers how much we appreciate what they and their families do? Thank you, man. Thank you, guys. Now, President Trump and I will always support the right of Americans to peaceful protest. It's enshrined in our Constitution. But rioting and looting, like we saw again this week in Philadelphia, rioting and looting is not peaceful protest. Burning businesses is not free speech. I was in Minneapolis just a couple short weeks ago. I met a wonderful African-American woman named Flora Westbrook. Flora started a beauty salon 35 years ago. Built it up with her own 2 hands. It became kind of a centerpiece of the community. And she told me about the night just a few days after the killing of George Floyd, when she watched as the rioters came closer and closer to that little business that she built until they burned her to the ground. I'll never forget standing shoulder to shoulder with Flora, looking down into what remained of her little salon. You know, and for months, all summer long when that was going on, all Joe Biden ever talked about was peaceful protesters, remember? Ignoring what was going on and the violence in streets across America. People were literally watching their communities burn. The truth is, Joe Biden would double down on the policies that have led to violence in our cities. When you start to back away from support for those who protect and serve, you only embolden those who would do harm to our families and our communities. Now, Joe Biden justifies it all by saying frequently that he believes America is systemically racist. And he and his running mate believe that police officers in this country have a, quote, implicit bias against minorities. When he was asked if he'd support cutting funding to law enforcement, Joe Biden replied, yes, absolutely. But I'll make you a promise. With 4 more years of President Donald Trump, we are not going to defund the police, not now, not ever. We're going to back the blue, and we're going to back the blue for 4 more years. You know, President Trump and I know what you know. We don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement and supporting our African American neighbors and friends and minorities and everyone that lives in our major cities. We've done both for the last 4 years. And we'll keep doing both for 4 more years. Our record is, under this president, We funded 4,000 additional police officers through the COPS program. When violence broke out in our cities, we launched Operation Legend, named after a 4-year-old boy that was literally gunned down in his home while he slept. And we've taken 3,000 violent offenders off the streets of our cities this summer alone. And at the same time, in those first 3 years, we saw the lowest unemployment ever recorded for African Americans, the highest funding ever for historically black colleges and universities. We passed criminal justice reform. We fought for school choice, and we founded 8,000 opportunity zones in cities across the country. So under President Donald Trump, we're going to have law and order and jobs and quality education for every American of every race and creed and color. So help us God. I love you too. And let me say, when it comes to the rule of law, this president, as I stand here today, with the support of Republicans in the United States Senate, has already seen confirmed more than 230 conservative judges to our federal courts. And they are all men and women who will uphold the God-given liberties enshrined in our Constitution, like the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, and the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. And that includes Justice Neil Gorsuch, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, and Justice Amy Coney Barrett. How great is she? Am I right? And I'm not saying that just because she's from Indiana. But we're awful proud of her. She's going to make the nation proud, I promise you. Brilliant, principled jurist who will serve for generations to come. And it's so important because this is really about our liberties. Our judiciary is the vanguard of the liberties that are enshrined in our founding documents and in the hearts of the American people. But here in Nevada, you'd all deserve to know that when Joe Biden was vice president, we saw a steady assault on the freedom of religion of the American people. The last administration used its regulatory power to erode the conscience rights of doctors and nurses and religious charities. They even hauled a group of nuns into federal court to order them to compromise their faith to live under the mandates of Obamacare. And Democrats in Washington, D.C. were part of a chorus. Remember 2 years ago when Justice Barrett was up for the Court of Appeals. She was appearing before the Judiciary Committee, and the leading Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, a Democrat from right over in California, said she was concerned about Amy Coney Barrett because of her sincere Catholic faith. She said, and I quote, "The dogma lives loudly within you." And Hollywood liberals started attacking Amy Coney Barrett, and they've never stopped. Well, I got a message for the Democrats in Washington and their Hollywood friends. That dogma lives loudly in me. That dogma lives loudly in you. And the right to live and work and worship according to the dictates of our faith lives loudly in the Constitution of the United States of America. They call the freedom of religion our first freedom. And under President Donald Trump, I'm proud to report that we've restored the conscience rights of doctors and nurses and religious charities and schools. We appointed principal conservatives to our courts at every level. And President Donald Trump ended the assault on the little sisters of the poor, and the Supreme Court of the United States made it permanent. Under President Donald Trump, we are going to stand for the freedom of religion of every American, of every faith. So help us God. And finally, where Joe Biden and Kamala Harris actually support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth, and are calling for record increases in funding for abortion at home and abroad, I couldn't be more proud to serve alongside a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. So in our first 3 years, if you're taking notes, we rebuilt our military, we revived our economy, we stood for law and order, liberties, and life. But none of that would have been possible without the strong and consistent support of Congressman Mark Amadei in the Congress. It's true. So when we re-elect President Donald Trump for 4 more years, the President and I need Nevada to send Congressman Mark Amadei and a wrestler and a businessman and a leader, Big Dan Rodimer, to a new Republican majority in the Congress of the United States and retire Nancy Pelosi once and for all. Out. I mean, she's got to go. You know, when you look at what we were able to accomplish with a Republican House and a Republican Senate those first 2 years, man, there's only one way you can describe those first 3 years. We made America great again. Am I right? And then the coronavirus struck from China. But before the first documented case of community spread anywhere in the United States, President Trump did what no American president had ever done. He suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world. He put the health of America first. Now, Joe Biden said that was xenophobic. He actually said it was hysterical and said that closing down travel during a global pandemic would actually make things worse. But Joe Biden got it wrong. President Trump got it right. President Trump's action shutting down all travel from China, I can tell you as the head of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, saved untold American lives because it bought us time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since World War II. It's true. We reinvented testing. We saw to the manufacture and distribution of billions of supplies of PPE. We worked with the Congress to provide support to families and to businesses impacted by the coronavirus. Therapeutics were developed that are saving lives to this day. And we are just weeks away from having millions of doses of the first coronavirus vaccine in the world. And as we see cases rise here in the West and around the country as the winter approaches, the people in Nevada can be confident. We're going to continue to move heaven and earth to make sure our doctors and nurses have all of the resources that they need to give anyone impacted by the coronavirus the level of care that we'd want a member of our family to have. I promise you that. We're going to keep protecting the vulnerable. We're going to keep saving lives. We're going to keep developing life-saving medicines until the day comes when we put the coronavirus pandemic in the past. And as we do all of that, under President Donald Trump, we are opening up America again. It's amazing to think, after losing 22 million jobs at the height of this pandemic, because of the strong foundation that we poured in those first 3 years, because of the unprecedented relief and recovery efforts that Congressman Amadei and others supported for families and businesses. In just the last 5 months, we've already seen 11.5 million people go back to work, including 160,000 people right here in Nevada. We're opening up America again, and the American economy is roaring back. But you all deserve to know that Joe Biden is talking about shutting down our economy again. The headlines today tell us that several European countries have already started their lockdowns. So you can bet that Joe Biden will shut down the American economy if he makes it to the White House. Your schools will be closed. Your churches, synagogues, and places of worship will be closed. Small businesses on Main Street will be shuttered again. Right at the moment that the American economy is coming back, Joe Biden said a few months back that he would shut it down. But we're not going to let it happen. We're going to keep meeting this moment with American resolve and compassion. We're going to distribute the vaccine. We're going to defeat the virus. And where Joe Biden says we're in for a long, dark winter, President Trump says the best is yet to come. So we've gone through a time of testing in 2020. But you're all out here tonight at the airport because you know we're 5 short days. We're coming to a time for choosing. The choice that Nevada makes will loom large in the destiny of our nation. Choice has never been clearer. The stakes have never been higher. I mean, when you look at their agenda of higher taxes, open borders, socialized medicine, a Green New Deal, defunding the police, abortion on demand, it's clear. Joe Biden would be nothing more than a Trojan horse for the radical left. Now, Joe Biden says that democracy is on the ballot. Well, I think our economic recovery is on the ballot. I think law and order are on the ballot. But I also think there's things much more foundational to who we are. You know, in this election, when all is said and done, I think it's not going to be so much whether America's more Republican or more Democrat, more liberal or more conservative, more red or more blue. I think the choice in this election is whether America remains America. You get it. It's whether we're going to chart a course for the future, for ourselves and our posterity, built on our greatest American traditions of faith and family and freedom and our heritage of patriotism. Or whether we're going to let Joe Biden and the Democratic Party surrender to the radical left, shut down our economy, and topple our heritage of freedom, traditional values, and lead our nation on a path of socialism and American decline. So men and women of Nevada, for our freedom and for all the values and ideals that have always made this nation exceptional and great, we need to decide right here and right now that Joe Biden will never be president of the United States. We're going to re-elect President Donald Trump for 4 more years. You know, serving at his side over the last 4 years, I can tell you firsthand, against unrelenting opposition and resistance from the Democrats in Washington, against unrelenting and unfair attacks by their allies in the national media. There's never been a day gone by that this president hasn't gotten up, turned his face like flint against the wind, and fought to keep the promises that he made to the people of America. Now it's our turn to fight for him. It's on, Nevada. And with 4 more years, we'll defeat the China virus. We'll ensure peace through America's strength. We'll uphold religious liberty, freedom of speech, and the right to keep and bear arms. We'll hire more police. We'll ban sanctuary cities. And we'll teach our children to love our country, honor our history, and always respect our great American flag. It's time to fight for America. Come November 3rd. It's time to fight to make freedom ring. To say with one voice all across this land, America will never be a socialist country. We're going to re-elect President Donald Trump for 4 more years. So before I go, a couple things I want to ask you to do. First and foremost, I checked on my way here. Early voting is already started. So first and foremost, I need you to vote, Nevada. Vote to re-elect President Donald Trump to the White House. I mean, just get it done. Karen and I voted in Indianapolis. The president voted down in Florida. I just need you to get it done, get it out of the way. I'm told you can vote early in person, right here in Reno. And if you don't know where, I checked. You can go to the Reno Sparks Convention Center, 4590 South Virginia Street. Today or tomorrow, open 9 to 7. And remember, friends don't let friends vote alone. Take a family member, take a neighbor, take a coworker, and vote to re-elect President Donald Trump today. All right? You just got to get it done, because I got something else for you to do the next 4 days. You know, when I think back on 2016 and that incredible election night, we saw that victory roll out all across the country. I thought it gave evidence of the fact that the American people decided to take their government back. That they were talking to each other. That they were kind of turning down the sound, right? On all the pundits and the pollsters and the experts and saying, no, you know what? I hear in this man, Donald Trump, a vision. I see leadership qualities that can bring this country back. And so I need you to do that again. And every day between now and Election Day, I just need you to go out and talk to somebody. At worship, at work, on a street corner. Just tell him again you ran into Mike. And I said, that guy stood up there. He talked for the better part of an hour about what we've done, about the choice that we face, about all we can do with 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House. Because never, ever doubt it. Never doubt that the most compelling media in this country is not your national TV or your cable networks or your big newspapers or your social media. It's when someone who knows you and hears from you about a candidate or a cause that you believe is important to them and to the state and to the nation. You know, the President and I were just on 60 Minutes the other night. Yeah, right. But the President got asked a question, and honestly, I'll never forget how he answered it. One of my favorite answers of his in a long time. She asked him a question about all of you. She actually said, "How would you describe your supporters?" And without a moment's hesitation, President Trump said, "They are people who love our country. So go out, tell your neighbor and friend how much you love this country and how much we need 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House." I'm telling you. Here the people govern. So let them hear from you. So after you vote with a friend, and after you spend all the rest of the next 4 days talking to everybody you know, I'd encourage you maybe to do one more thing. You know, as I've traveled across this country for the last 4 years as your vice president, I've become more convinced of ever of 2 things are true. This is a freedom-loving nation. And this is a nation of faith. I mean, everywhere I go, without fail, it happened today in Iowa again. People will reach out across a rope line and they'll just say to me, "I'm praying for you." The President and I hear it all the time, and it's the sweetest words we ever hear. So let me just say, if you're among those who, like the Pences, try to bow the head and bend the knee from time to time, I'd encourage you to do that too over the next 5 days. And when you pray, I'd encourage you to pray with confidence. Confidence in some words written down thousands of years ago, but that Americans have clung to through much more challenging times than we could even possibly imagine. A promise that if His people who are called by His name will humble themselves and pray and turn, that He'll do like He's always done through the long and storied history of this great nation. He'll hear from heaven, and He'll heal this land. This one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So pray for America. Pray for all of the American people. I promise you it'll make a difference. So I want to thank you for coming out today. Really and truly. I can't wait to tell the President about the group and the enthusiasm that I saw here today. And I also want to say thank you to all the people that weren't able to come. So many people signed up for this rally, but to each and every one of you, thank you. Thank you for the support. I leave here today with renewed confidence that if all of us do all that we need to do, to vote, to speak out, and to pray, come November 3rd here in Nevada and around America, we're going to have a great victory for freedom. We're going to make Nevada and America more prosperous than ever before. We're going to make Nevada and America safer than ever before. We're going to make this country more united than ever before. And with Congressman Mark Amodei in a new Republican majority in the United States Congress, with President Donald Trump back in the White House for 4 more years, and with God's help, we're going to make America great again. Again. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless America. Now let's go get it done, Nevada.